The avoidant is waiting for you to break. Not consciously, not with malicious intent, but their entire attachment system is carefully organized around the deep expectation that you will eventually reveal yourself to be flawed, messy, complicated, and imperfect in real ways. They need to see your dark side because perfection terrifies them more than imperfection ever could. When you're too patient, too understanding, too consistently kind, the avoidant becomes more anxious rather than more secure. They cannot trust what appears flawless because their experience has taught them that flawlessness is a facade that inevitably cracks. The avoidant needs to see you angry, selfish, unreasonable, and human because these qualities make you real in ways that perfection never can. Your darkness doesn't repel the avoidant. Your consistent light does. Understanding this paradox is crucial because you might be driving the avoidant away by being too good, by hiding your own struggles and sharp edges in an attempt to be what you think they need. The avoidant doesn't need another person performing stability. They need someone real enough to make mistakes, honest enough to show frustration, flawed enough to be relatable, and human enough to sometimes be the problem in the dynamic. The perfection anxiety mechanism. The avoidant experiences your consistently good behavior as a threat rather than a comfort. When you're always patient with their withdrawal, always understanding of their limitations, always willing to accommodate their needs, it creates mounting anxiety. The avoidant cannot believe this patience is genuine. They assume you're performing, suppressing your real feelings, building resentment that will eventually explode. In the avoidance worldview, everyone has a breaking point. Everyone eventually gets fed up, angry, and critical. By remaining consistently supportive, you're not proving your love. You're proving you're either lying about your feelings or building toward an inevitable eruption that will be worse for having been delayed. This perfection anxiety means the avoidant is constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop. Subscribe to understand these counterintuitive dynamics that actually explain why relationships with avoidance operate so differently from what you'd expect. They're not relaxing into your patience. They're becoming more tense, more vigilant, more convinced that when you finally snap, it will confirm their worst beliefs about relationships and their own unworthiness. The avoidant would rather see your dark side now in manageable doses than wait for the catastrophic breakdown they're certain is coming. Your controlled, measured responses feel like a ticking time bomb rather than evidence of emotional stability. The perfection anxiety also stems from the avoidant's awareness of their own limitations. They know they're difficult partners. They know their patterns hurt people. When you don't react with hurt, frustration, or anger, the avoidant becomes confused about your humanity. Are you a doormat with no boundaries? Are you suppressing legitimate feelings? Are you so damaged yourself that their behavior doesn't even register as problematic? None of these possibilities are attractive. The avoidant needs to see that their behavior affects you, that you have limits, that you're capable of pushing back when pushed. Your tolerance for their patterns without visible consequence creates dissonance that increases their anxiety rather than their comfort. The authenticity verification need. The avoidant is constantly testing whether what you show them is real. They assume people present false versions of themselves in the early stages of relationship, showing only the good parts while hiding the difficult, messy, or problematic aspects. The avoidant is waiting to see your real self because the version you're presenting seems too good to be true. They need to see you be selfish, demanding, irrational, or cruel because these qualities prove you're human rather than performing humanity. The avoidant cannot trust the carefully curated person you show them because their experience has taught them that careful curation always hides something worse underneath. This need for authenticity verification means that when you do show negative emotions or behaviors, the avoidant paradoxically relaxes. They're not happy that you're angry or that you've been selfish, but they're relieved that you've revealed something real. The mask has slipped, and underneath is an actual person with actual flaws. This is someone the avoidant can believe in, can relate to, can trust. The avoidant's own sense of being fundamentally flawed makes perfection in others feel alien and threatening. But your darkness, your mistakes, your worst moments create connection, because now you're both imperfect humans navigating relationship rather than one broken person desperately trying to be good enough for someone seemingly perfect. The authenticity verification also includes the avoidant needing to see how you handle your own dark side. Do you acknowledge your mistakes? Do you take responsibility for your impact? Do you work on your patterns or deny them? When the avoidant sees you grapple with your own limitations, they learn whether it's safe to reveal their own. If you can be flawed and still worthy, maybe they can be too. If you can mess up and not be destroyed by shame, maybe they don't have to be destroyed by theirs. Your dark side, when owned and worked with, gives the avoidant a roadmap for how to be imperfect and still deserving of love. The emotional range requirement. The avoidant needs to see the full range of your emotional capacity because single-note emotional expression feels inauthentic. If you're only ever calm, patient, and understanding, the avoidant questions whether you're emotionally alive. Real humans feel anger, frustration, jealousy, pettiness, and selfishness. When you show only positive emotions, the avoidant wonders what you're suppressing and what will happen when the suppression fails. They need to see you angry, because anger is honest. They need to see you selfish because selfishness proves you have boundaries. They need to see you messy because messiness is human. This emotional range requirement means the avoidant actually responds better to displays of negative emotion than to continued patience. When you get angry about their withdrawal, when you express frustration about their patterns, when you set a hard boundary because you've reached your limit, the avoidant sees evidence that you're real. You're not a saint tolerating their flaws out of pity or some pathological need to fix broken people. You're a person with limits who is choosing to engage despite those limits being tested. This distinction matters enormously. The avoidant can respect someone with boundaries who chooses to stay. They cannot respect or trust someone who seems to have no boundaries at all. The emotional range also includes the avoidant needing to see how you handle conflict and difficulty. When you never show stress, never display vulnerability about your own struggles, never let them see you at less than your best, you're creating distance through perfection. The avoidant cannot connect with someone who seems to have no struggles because they're drowning in their own. Your dark side, your difficult moments, your times of being overwhelmed or inadequate, create opportunities for mutual support that one-sided caretaking never can. The avoidant needs to sometimes be the strong one, the capable one, the person who holds space for someone else's difficulty. Your perfection robs them of this opportunity. The projection screen problem. When you show no dark side, the avoidant projects their own darkness onto you. They assume you're hiding the same flaws they have because everyone must have these flaws. The avoidant's imagination about what you're hiding is often worse than what you'd actually reveal if you showed your real struggles. By presenting a consistently positive front, you're not protecting the avoidant from your darkness. You're allowing them to create a version of your darkness that's based on their worst fears rather than reality. When you do reveal your actual limitations, they're often relieved that you're not as bad as what they'd imagined. This projection screen problem means the avoidant is essentially in relationship with a fantasy of you rather than the real you. They're responding to who they imagine you are when you're not being careful, what you're really thinking when you're being so understanding, what you actually want that you're not expressing. These projections create distance because the avoidant is never responding to your actual person. They're responding to their fears about who you might be. By showing your dark side, you replace their frightening projections with concrete reality that's usually much less threatening. The projection screen also means the avoidant never feels fully known or accepted. If they're only seeing your light side, they assume you're only showing them what you think they want to see. This creates the painful dynamic where the avoidant believes they're showing you their real self while you're showing them a curated version. The power imbalance and vulnerability makes genuine intimacy impossible. The avoidant is exposed while you remain hidden. This imbalance is unbearable for someone who already feels fundamentally more flawed than others. Your darkness levels the playing field and creates the possibility for mutual vulnerability. The escape route testing. The avoidant is constantly testing whether they can leave if necessary. They need to know that when they fail, when they disappoint you, when they cannot be what you need, there's an exit available. Your consistent patience and understanding, paradoxically, makes them feel more trapped because it suggests that you'll never release them, that you'll hold on regardless of how badly they behave, that escape will require them to hurt you catastrophically. When you show your dark side, when you get angry or set firm boundaries, you're showing the avoidant that there are circumstances under which you'd let them go. This isn't threatening. It's reassuring. The escape route testing manifests as the avoidant pushing boundaries and testing limits. They're not trying to make you leave, but they need to know you could leave if they became too much. Your tolerance for their worst behavior without consequence feels like a prison rather than unconditional love. The avoidant needs to see that you have a breaking point, that you're choosing to stay because the relationship works for you, not because you're codependent or have no other options. When you display anger, frustration, or firm boundaries, you're proving that you could leave, but you're choosing to stay. This choice is meaningful in ways that inevitable tolerance never is. The testing also includes the avoidant needing to see that they can't manipulate or control you through their patterns. When their withdrawal doesn't break you, when their coldness doesn't make you chase harder, when their inconsistency doesn't make you more accommodating, the avoidant learns that you're a separate person with your own strength. Your dark side includes the capacity to say no, to prioritize yourself, to let them sit with consequences of their behavior. This strength is attractive and trust-building in ways that endless accommodation never is. The avoidant needs a partner, not a parent figure who will tolerate anything. The mirroring dynamic need. The avoidant needs to see their own patterns reflected back occasionally to understand their impact. When you never show darkness in response to their darkness, they don't learn about consequences. They exist in a vacuum where their behavior has no effect on anyone, which reinforces their sense of being disconnected and separate from others. When you show your dark side specifically in response to their patterns, you're teaching them about cause and effect in relationship. Your anger shows them they've hurt you. Your withdrawal shows them what their withdrawal feels like from the other side. Your coldness mirrors their coldness back so they can see how it lands. This mirroring doesn't mean being retaliatory or punishing. It means being honest about your emotional experience rather than managing it to protect the avoidant's feelings. When the avoidant withdraws and you feel hurt, showing that hurt is valuable information they need. When they're dismissive and you feel angry, expressing that anger creates accountability. When they prioritize their needs exclusively, and you match that energy by prioritizing yours, you're establishing equality rather than codependence. The avoidant learns from these mirrors in ways they never learn from patience that asks nothing of them. The mirroring dynamic also helps the avoidant understand that their patterns aren't happening in isolation. Their withdrawal creates your pursuing. Their coldness creates your doubt. Their inconsistency creates your anxiety. By showing your dark side reactions, you're revealing the systemic nature of relationship patterns rather than allowing the avoidant to believe they're the only problematic person in the dynamic. This shared responsibility for patterns is actually less shameful than the alternative, where only the avoidant has flaws and you're perfect. Shared imperfection creates connection that perfection and flawedness cannot. The vulnerability permission grant. When you show your dark side, you give the avoidant permission to show theirs more fully. They've been hiding their worst parts, managing their presentation, trying to be less of a problem. But this management is exhausting and prevents authentic connection. When you reveal that you're also messy, also flawed, also sometimes the problem, the avoidant can exhale. They don't have to be so careful. They don't have to manage themselves so intensely. If you can be imperfect and still deserving of connection, maybe they can be too. This permission grant is especially important regarding the avoidant's attachment patterns. When they see you struggle with your own patterns, whatever they are, they learn that patterns are human rather than evidence of fundamental brokenness. If you can admit you're anxious sometimes, codependent sometimes, avoidant in certain areas, you normalize the reality that everyone has defensive adaptations. The avoidant has been treating their attachment style as a shameful secret that makes them uniquely damaged. Your darkness shows them that everyone is adapting to something. Everyone has patterns that create problems. Everyone is working with limitations. The permission grant also includes allowing the avoidant to see you not at your best and still be accepted. When you're tired, stressed, overwhelmed, or handling difficulty poorly, and the avoidant doesn't leave or lose respect for you, they learn that imperfection doesn't equal abandonment. This is the core healing experience the avoidant needs. They've learned that showing their struggles leads to rejection. Watching you show struggles without being rejected begins to rewire that belief. Your darkness, when met with continued connection, teaches the avoidant that maybe relationship can survive real humans with real limitations. The power balance correction. When you only show light and the avoidant shows darkness, a power imbalance develops. You're the together one, the healer, the stable presence. They're the broken one, the problem, the person who needs fixing. This dynamic is unsustainable and deeply unattractive to the avoidant. They don't want to be a project or a patient. They want to be a partner. Your dark side corrects the power imbalance by revealing that you're both humans with struggles, both people with patterns, both individuals who bring complexity to the relationship. The power balance correction means the avoidant can stop feeling like they're constantly taking and never giving. When you show your struggles, the avoidant has opportunities to support, to be strong, to contribute to your well-being, rather than only draining it. This reciprocity is essential for the avoidant's self-respect and their respect for you. Being the perpetual problem in the relationship reinforces their shame. Being able to sometimes be the solution, to sometimes be the stable one, to sometimes hold space for your difficulty, allows them to feel capable and valuable. The power correction also addresses the avoidance discomfort with being constantly accommodated. When you're always adjusting to them, they feel guilty and infantilized. When you sometimes require them to adjust to you, when your dark side creates needs they must accommodate, you're establishing adult-to-adult relationship rather than parent-to-child. The avoidant needs to be challenged, to be asked to show up, to be required to consider someone else's needs sometimes. Your darkness makes these demands possible in ways your constant light never does. The real love testing. The avoidant cannot believe you love them if you only love their performance of who they think they should be. They need to know if you can love their real self, including the parts they're ashamed of, the parts they try to hide, the parts they believe make them fundamentally unlovable. Your consistent positivity doesn't answer this crucial question. It leaves the avoidant wondering if you'd still be here if you saw the absolute worst of them, if you knew their darkest thoughts, if you understood the full extent of their damage. When you show your own dark side and stick around to see theirs without leaving or losing respect for them, you're proving that real love exists, that imperfect people can love imperfect people. That relationship doesn't require perfection from anyone involved. This real love testing is why the avoidant often sabotages when things are going well. They need to introduce difficulty to see if you'll stay through it. They need to show you their worst to see if it drives you away. These aren't conscious strategies, but defensive tests rooted in their deepest fears about being fundamentally unlovable. When you show your darkness first, you preempt some of this testing by demonstrating that you're not the perfect person they feared they had to measure up to. You're just a person doing your best with your own struggles. This levels the playing field and makes real love possible. The testing also includes the avoidant needing to see that you love them for real reasons, not because you need to save someone or because you can't do better. When you show strength, boundaries, and your own complexity, the avoidant learns that you're with them by choice rather than necessity. You could enforce boundaries and leave if it came to that. You could prioritize yourself if the relationship wasn't working. You choose to stay not because you have to, but because you want to. This chosen love based on real appraisal of the whole person is infinitely more valuable than unconditional tolerance that suggests you might not have other options.